Hey, welcome back to English in Fluency. I'm Alex, and I'm genuinely so glad you're here today. If you've been studying English for a while, you've probably had that moment, you know the one, where someone says something in a conversation, and you think, wait, what did they just mean by that? You understood every single word, but the meaning still felt just slightly out of reach. That happens to so many learners, and it happens especially when people are talking about expectations, about what's supposed to happen, about what was meant to occur but didn't, or about what someone expected another person to do. These are incredibly common situations in real English conversations, and today we are going to unlock them together. So stay with me, because by the end of this lesson, your listening is going to feel so much sharper and more natural. Before we get into anything, I want to ask you something honestly. Have you ever been in a situation where you heard the phrase, "he was supposed to call," and you understood the words individually, but the emotion behind them, that feeling of disappointment, of unmet expectation, somehow didn't fully land? Yeah, that's exactly what we're working on today. Not just the grammar, the feeling, the real-life human meaning behind these expressions, because that's what real listening is all about. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through a series of conversations, real, natural-sounding conversations between real people in everyday situations. We'll listen carefully, we'll talk through the meaning, and then we'll make sure it all sticks. No rushing, no skipping over the good stuff. Every single section of this lesson is designed to make you feel more confident the next time you're listening to English in real life. Whether that's a podcast, a conversation with a friend, a movie, or anything else. Let's begin. The first thing you need to understand is that English speakers express expectations in very specific ways, and there are a handful of words and phrases they come back to again and again. Words like supposed to, meant to, expected to, should have, was going to, and planned to. Each of these carries a slightly different shade of meaning, and that's what makes listening so rich, and sometimes so tricky. Today, we're going to hear them all in natural conversations, and I'm going to help you feel the difference between them not just intellectually, but in your gut, the way a fluent speaker does. All right, let's start with our first conversation. Imagine two friends. Let's call them Priya and Marcus. They made plans earlier in the week, and now one of those plans has clearly gone wrong. Here's how their conversation sounds. Priya says, "Marcus, what happened? I waited for you at the cafe for almost 40 minutes. Marcus sounds apologetic. He says, I know. I'm so sorry. I was supposed to meet you at 2, but my boss pulled me into this last-minute meeting and I couldn't get out." Priya sighs. "I figured something came up. You should have at least sent me a message, though." Marcus says, "You're right. I meant to text you. I really did. But everything happened so fast. The meeting ran long and then my phone died. I feel terrible about it." Priya responds, "It's fine. I just wish I'd known. I was expecting you to walk in any minute, so I kept waiting instead of just leaving." Marcus says, "Next time I'll let you know straight away if something changes. I promise." Okay, let's pause right there. There's so much going on in that short little conversation, and I want to make sure we catch every piece of it. The first phrase Marcus uses is, "I was supposed to meet you at 2. Now, what does supposed to mean here? It means there was a plan, an arrangement, an expectation that existed between two people. Priya expected Marcus to arrive at 2 o'clock. Marcus knew he was expected. That was the agreement. But it didn't happen. And that's the beautiful, painful thing about supposed to. It almost always implies that something fell through. Something that was supposed to happen didn't. When you hear supposed to in a conversation, your listening brain should immediately go, okay, so there was a plan, and something disrupted it. That awareness completely changes how you understand what comes next in the conversation. Now look at what Priya says next. She says, "You should have at least sent me a message." This one is a little different. Should have, with the past form, is talking about something that didn't happen, but that the speaker believes ought to have happened. It's a gentle criticism. It's not cruel, but it carries a clear expectation. The right thing to do would have been to send a message. When Priya says, "you should have," she's expressing a kind of disappointment, a sense that the right action was available and wasn't taken. That's a very different feeling from supposed to, even though both are about expectations. Supposed to is about an agreement. Should have is more about what was the right or responsible thing to do. Then Marcus says, "I meant to text you." Oh, this one is really interesting and really human. Meant to is one of those expressions that almost always carries a sense of regret mixed with a kind of excuse. When someone says, "I meant to do something," it means they had the intention. The desire was there. The plan was forming in their mind. But for some reason, it didn't follow through into action. Marcus intended to text Priya. That was genuinely in his mind. But it didn't happen. There's something a little sad about meant to, isn't there? It's a word that lives in that space between good intentions and reality. You'll hear it a lot in English, especially when someone is trying to explain themselves without sounding like they didn't care. Because they did care. They just didn't act on it. And then Priya wraps it up with something really touching. "I was expecting you to walk in any minute." This is expecting. And this time, it's describing Priya's internal mental state during that 40-minute wait. She wasn't just sitting there randomly. She was actively anticipating Marcus walking through that door. Every minute that passed was a minute of expecting. That word expecting describes a sustained feeling, a mental state of readiness and anticipation. When you hear "I was expecting," you should feel the weight of that waiting, that hope, that gradual shift into worry or disappointment. So just from one conversation, we've covered 4 key expressions: supposed to, should have, meant to, and expecting. Each one is a different angle on the same broad idea of expectations. Let's keep going. Our second conversation takes place in a workplace. Picture 2 colleagues, we'll call them Sandra and David, talking at the end of the day about a project that was supposed to be finished. David walks into Sandra's office looking stressed. He says, "Sandra, has the report been submitted yet?" Sandra looks up from her computer and says, "No. I thought Owen was handling that. Wasn't he supposed to send it to the client by 4 o'clock? David exhales. "Yes, exactly. He was expected to submit it before the end of business, but I haven't heard anything from him. Have you?" Sandra shakes her head. "No. And honestly, I'm a little worried because the client was expecting it today. They plan to review it before their board meeting tomorrow morning." David says, "This is a problem. Owen should have flagged this to one of us if he was running into trouble." He shouldn't have just gone quiet. Sandra nods. I know. I'm going to call him right now. He was meant to be done with this 2 hours ago. Let's dig into this one. There's a real urgency in this conversation, and the language of expectations is doing a lot of the emotional work. When David asks if Owen was supposed to send it to the client by 4 o'clock, he's checking on a very specific commitment, a deadline that had been set. The phrase "supposed to" here is about professional obligation. It wasn't just a vague hope. Someone set a time, and Owen was the person responsible for meeting it. When you hear "supposed to" in a work setting, it carries a strong sense of responsibility and accountability. Then Sandra says the client was expecting it today, and they had planned to review it. Notice how she shifts from one expression to another. The client was expecting it. This is the client's mental state, their anticipation, and they planned to review it. This is an action they had organized their time and schedule around. These two things together paint a very full picture of why missing this deadline isn't just a small inconvenience. It's affecting someone else's carefully made plans. David's comment is the one that really carries the emotional weight of the conversation, though. He says, he shouldn't have just gone quiet. Now, this is a negative form of should have, and it works exactly the same way, but in reverse. Instead of saying what someone should have done and didn't, it's saying what someone shouldn't have done, but did. Owen went quiet, meaning he stopped communicating. And David believes that was the wrong choice. Shouldn't have is expressing both criticism and disappointment at once. It's that feeling of, that was the wrong thing to do and now we're in a difficult situation because of it. And Sandra finishes by saying, he was meant to be done with this 2 hours ago. This is meant to again, but this time it's completely stripped of sympathy. When meant to is used by the person experiencing the consequences, not the person who failed to act, it sounds more accusatory. It's stating the expectation plainly, without softening it. 2 hours ago. He was meant to be done, but he wasn't. That contrast between the expectation and the reality is right there in the phrase, and a fluent listener can feel the frustration in it. Let's move into our third conversation. This one is a little more personal. It's between a mother and her teenage son. The son's name is Leo, and the mother's name is Ruth. Ruth is in the kitchen when Leo comes downstairs later than expected. She says, "Leo, it's almost noon. I thought you were supposed to help me with the grocery shopping this morning." Leo, still half asleep, says, "I know, Mom. I was going to, but I was up so late finishing my assignment." Ruth sighs. "You should have told me that last night. I waited for you until 10 o'clock, and then I had to go alone." Leo looks guilty. "I'm sorry. I genuinely meant to tell you, but I kept thinking I'd finish earlier, and I just didn't." Ruth softens a little. "It's okay, but Leo, next time I need you to let me know in advance. I was counting on you to be there. The bags were really heavy." Leo nods slowly. "I know. I'm sorry, Mum. I'll make it up to you. I promise." This conversation is so rich with emotion, and it shows how these same expressions land very differently depending on the relationship and the context. Let's work through it together. When Ruth says, "You were supposed to help me," it's an expectation rooted in a family agreement, a domestic understanding that had been made, but there's also something softer about it. It's not a legal contract, It's a mother asking her son for help. The disappointment in supposed to here is colored by love as much as anything else. Leo's response is, I was going to, and this one is a little new. I was going to is similar to I meant to, but it places the intention even more firmly in the past. It's saying, at one point in time, that action was on my future plans. But now we're past that point, and it didn't happen. I was going to often sounds a little more resigned than I meant to. It's almost like saying, I had it all set up in my mind, and somehow it just didn't work out. It's a very natural, human thing to say, and you'll hear it constantly in English conversations. Then Ruth says something that deserves attention. I was counting on you to be there. This is a really important expression for expressing expectations because it goes deeper than just planning or anticipating. Counting on means that you built your own actions around someone else's expected actions. Ruth didn't just hope Leo would show up. She organized her morning around the assumption that he would. She waited. She went alone when he didn't appear. And the bags were heavy, which is the quiet, practical consequence of her unmet expectation. When someone says, I was counting on you, there's a vulnerability in it. It means I trusted you enough to depend on you. And that trust wasn't honored. Now let's shift gears a little and bring in a fourth conversation, this time between two neighbors. Their names are Jonah and Patricia, and they're talking about a local event that was planned in their neighborhood. Patricia says, Jonah, I heard the community garden opening was postponed. Is that true? Jonah nods. Yeah, unfortunately. It was supposed to open last Saturday. Everything was set. People were expected to come. The city council members were even planning to make a speech. But there were some last-minute issues with the water supply. Patricia looks disappointed. Oh no, I was looking forward to it so much. My daughter was meant to do a small performance there with her school group. Jonah shakes his head sympathetically. I know, it's such a shame. Everyone was expecting it to be a really special day. The organizers had been working on it for months, Patricia says. I just hope they reschedule it soon. My daughter was so excited. She should have been performing in front of all those people this weekend. Instead, she's just sitting at home, a little deflated. Jonah smiles kindly. Tell her not to worry. It will happen. It was just delayed, not canceled. Her moment is still coming. This conversation is wonderful because it shows how these expressions work, not just in interpersonal situations, but in the context of broader community expectations. When Jonah says the garden was supposed to open last Saturday, he's describing a public plan, a shared community expectation. Many people were expecting this. It wasn't just one person's hope. And when he says people were expected to come, he's using expected in a slightly more passive, impersonal way. It was anticipated that a crowd would gather. It was the expected outcome. There's no single person doing the expecting here. It's a collective anticipation. Patricia's phrase, "My daughter was meant to do a small performance," is so poignant because it takes us out of the abstract and back into something very personal. One little girl had practiced, had prepared, had looked forward to her moment. Was meant to, here carries such a gentle weight of loss. A small loss, yes, but a real one. And then Patricia says, she should have been performing in front of all those people this weekend. That should have been is interesting because it's not really blame. No one made a mistake. No one let anyone down deliberately. It's more like a mourning of what could have been, what was supposed to be the reality, but isn't. You'll hear should have been in this kind of context quite often. When life or circumstances change the plan, and someone needs to express that something good was supposed to happen and didn't. All right, I want to pause here for a moment and do something a little interactive. I'm going to give you a few sentences, and I want you to think about what each one means, not just literally, but emotionally. Think about what expectation is being described. Think about whether it was met or unmet. Think about who might be feeling what. Don't rush. Let the sentences sit with you for a second. The first sentence. She was supposed to arrive an hour ago. Go ahead and sit with that. What do you hear? There was an arrangement, an expected arrival time. An hour has passed. She still isn't here. Someone is waiting. Someone may be worried. Someone is probably a little frustrated or confused. The expectation was completely clear, and reality hasn't matched it yet. Second sentence. I was going to apologize, but I didn't know how to start. This one is so human. There was an intention, a sincere one. The person wanted to make things right, but something stopped them. Not laziness, not indifference, but a kind of emotional paralysis. I didn't know how to start. The intention was there. The action was not. And there's probably a lingering guilt in that gap. Third sentence. They expected the project to take 3 weeks, but it ended up taking 3 months. Here the expectation was about time, about how long something should take. The reality was dramatically different. This sentence would appear in a story about something that went wrong, or took much longer than anyone anticipated. It implies that someone underestimated something, and there were probably consequences. Fourth sentence. You should have told me before I made all these plans. Oh, this one has real heat in it, doesn't it? Someone made plans. Those plans were based on information they didn't have. And now they feel that if they'd been told the truth, or told earlier, they wouldn't be in this situation. The should have is a criticism. It's blame, even if it's soft blame. And there's a real sense of wasted effort underneath it. Good. You're doing brilliantly. Let's keep going because I want to introduce you to a few more nuances that come up in natural conversation. Our fifth conversation is between two university students. Their names are Felix and Amara, and they're talking after class about a group assignment. Felix approaches Amara in the hallway. Hey, Amara, did you finish your section of the report? Amara looks flustered. Not yet. I was supposed to finish it yesterday, but I completely underestimated how long it would take. Felix frowns slightly. That's a problem. The whole group was counting on you. We're supposed to submit everything by Friday, and I thought we were ahead of schedule. Amara sighs. I know. I should have started earlier. I kept planning to get it done, but then things kept coming up. Felix softens a little. Okay, look. Can you have it ready by tomorrow night? Amara nods. Yes, absolutely. I was going to pull an all-nighter anyway. I'm sorry, Felix. I meant to give everyone a heads up, but I kept thinking I'd fix it before I had to tell anyone. Felix sighs. Next time, just be upfront. We're a team. If something's off track, we need to know. We expected more communication from you. Amara nods quietly. You're right. I'll have it done by tomorrow. I promise. This conversation is a goldmine of natural English. Let's walk through it carefully. Amara says she was supposed to finish it yesterday. Again, supposed to marks the original plan, the deadline that was set, the expectation that existed within the group. But notice what she adds. I completely underestimated how long it would take. This is the real story. The unmet expectation wasn't caused by laziness or not caring. It was caused by misjudging the task. That's a very human and very common reason why expectations go unmet. And English gives us precise ways to talk about it. Felix says, the whole group was counting on you. And again, counting on is so powerful here. It's the same phrase we heard earlier with Ruth, and it emphasizes dependency. The group's plan depended on Amara doing her part. Their timeline, their confidence, their progress, all of it rested on her fulfilling her role. When you hear counting on, feel the weight of interdependence in it. Amara says, I kept planning to get it done, but then things kept coming up. This is a really natural colloquial way to express repeated failed intentions. I kept planning to. The intention was there, not just once, but multiple times. It was a repeating loop of intending and not completing. But things kept coming up, which means unexpected situations or problems appeared again and interrupted the plan. This is the kind of thing real people say all the time when they're explaining a pattern of procrastination or disruption. Then Felix, at the end, says, we expected more communication from you. This is expected, used in a relational, interpersonal sense, not just about tasks or timelines, but about behavior and trust. The group had a reasonable expectation about how Amara would communicate. They expected to be informed if something was going wrong. That expectation wasn't met, and Felix is naming that directly. It's a mature, honest piece of feedback. Let me now bring in a completely different kind of conversation to show you just how versatile these expressions are. This one takes place between a customer and a customer service representative. The customer's name is George, and the representative's name is Claire. George calls the service center. He sounds calm, but clearly frustrated. He says, Hello, I'm calling about an order I placed about 2 weeks ago. I still haven't received it. Claire responds warmly, I'm sorry to hear that, George. Could I get your order number? George gives her the number and Claire pulls up the file. After a moment, she says, I can see here that your order was supposed to ship last Thursday. It looks like there was a delay at the warehouse. George says, A delay. Right. I was told it would arrive by Monday at the latest. I was expecting it by Monday because I actually planned to use it for an event on Tuesday. Now, the event has already happened, and I no longer need it. Claire sounds genuinely sorry. I completely understand, and I sincerely apologize. This should not have happened. You were given a delivery window, and we failed to meet it. That's entirely on us. George says, I appreciate you saying that. I just wish someone had let me know. I was waiting for it all weekend. It should have been here before the event, not after. Claire says, Absolutely. You're right. We should have communicated the delay to you immediately instead of leaving you without any information. I'm going to offer you a full refund and express ship the item at no charge. George sighs. Okay. I don't need it anymore, but I appreciate the gesture. This is such a real-world conversation, and it shows how supposed to, should have, and expected to Work in professional and commercial contexts. When Claire says the order was supposed to ship last Thursday, she's acknowledging an objective commitment, a promise that was made and not kept. Notice how she doesn't dispute it or minimize it. She confirms it. That's important in professional English. Confirming the expectation before addressing what went wrong. When George says, "I was expecting it by Monday," he's giving context for why the delay mattered. His expectation wasn't arbitrary. It was connected to a real plan, an event on Tuesday. When you're listening to English and someone explains what they were expecting, pay attention to what comes after, because they'll usually tell you why the expectation mattered. Then Claire says something very important. This should not have happened. This form, should not have happened, is a very formal, professional way of acknowledging that a situation was wrong. It's not blaming a person specifically. It's saying the situation itself was contrary to what should have been the case. In professional English, you'll hear this kind of language when companies or institutions want to take responsibility without pointing fingers internally. And George echoes it more personally. It should have been here before the event, not after. That's the emotional core of his disappointment. Not just that the item was late, but that the timing made it useless. Should have been here, there's a finality in it. It's acknowledging a gap between what was supposed to be and what actually was, and the gap was too wide to recover from. Let's do one more conversation, and I've saved a particularly warm and personal one for last. This one is between two old friends who haven't seen each other in years. Their names are Claudia and Nathan, and they're catching up over coffee. Claudia smiles as she looks at Nathan across the table. "I still can't believe we're actually sitting here. We were supposed to do this years ago." Nathan laughs. "I know. We kept saying we would, but life just happened. Work, family, moving cities. I always meant to reach out more." Claudia nods. "Same here. I think about those conversations we used to have. Do you remember when we were planning to start that little business together?" Nathan's eyes light up. "Oh gosh, yes. We were so sure that was going to happen. We were going to open a bookshop. We were expected to be co-owners of the coolest little cafe bookshop in the city by the time we were 30. Claudia laughs warmly. "And here we are, 42. They both laugh. Claudia says, "I don't regret where life took us. But there's a part of me that still wonders about that version of us that was supposed to open that shop." Nathan says, "Me too. But hey, we're here now. We should have done this sooner, but better late than never, right?" Claudia reaches across and squeezes his hand. "Absolutely. Let's not wait another 10 years. This conversation is quietly beautiful, and the expressions of expectation here carry a very different emotional color from all the others we've heard today. When Claudia says, "We were supposed to do this years ago," she's not blaming anyone. She's reflecting, warmly and with a little bit of nostalgic sadness, on a plan that never materialized. Life got in the way, not in a dramatic or painful sense, but in the ordinary, human way that time just passes and things get postponed. When Nathan says, "I always meant to reach out more," the word "always" makes it even more poignant. Not just once, but over and over the intention was there. And over it was deferred. Meant to, in that context, is full of gentle regret. Not the sharp regret of having done something wrong, but the soft regret of having let something slip away. Then they revisit the old dream together. We were going to open a bookshop. Look at that phrase. We're going to. That was a future that felt completely real at the time. It was in their plans. It was part of how they saw themselves. We were expected to be co-owners. There's a charming humor in the way Nathan says that, as if there was some external agreement, some universal expectation, that they would achieve this dream. And it didn't happen. But the way they talk about it is with laughter, not grief. And at the end, Nathan says, "We should have done this sooner." This is one of the gentlest forms of should have you'll ever hear. It's not a criticism of the other person. It's a shared acknowledgement from both of them, about both of them, that this reconnection should have come earlier. But there's no blame, just a little wistfulness and a lot of warmth. And then he immediately offers the counter. Better late than never. Moving forward, the expectation that was delayed is finally being fulfilled right now, at this table, over these cups of coffee. Now, I want to bring all of this together for you in a way that really stays with you. Let's think about everything we've covered today as a kind of emotional map of expectations in English. At one end of the map, you have clear, concrete plans that didn't happen, like he was supposed to meet me at 2, or the order was supposed to ship last Thursday. These are factual, specific, and often carry frustration or disappointment. In the middle of the map, you have intentions that never became actions, like, I meant to call, I was going to apologize, I kept planning to finish it. These are softer, more personal, and often carry a mixture of regret and explanation. And at the other end of the map, you have that reflective, looking back kind of expectation. We were supposed to open a bookshop. She should have been performing this weekend. These carry a kind of nostalgic, bittersweet quality. A mourning, sometimes, for the version of events that was meant to be. When you're listening to English, really listening, you're constantly moving along that map. And now that you have these tools, you'll be much more aware of where a speaker is, emotionally, when they use each phrase. You'll feel the urgency in should have been here by now. You'll feel the tenderness in I always meant to stay in touch. You'll feel the collective disappointment in everyone was expecting it to be a special day. That emotional awareness is the difference between understanding English and truly connecting with it. Let me give you a few more practice examples now, and this time I want you to try something slightly more active. As you hear each sentence, try to identify 2 things: the type of expectation being expressed and the emotion behind it. I'll give you a moment after each one. My sister was supposed to fly in for the wedding, but she got sick and couldn't make it. So, there was a plan, a confirmed plan. The emotion here is probably disappointment, sadness, and sympathy. The wedding happened without the sister there. Supposed to marks the original plan, and couldn't make it tells us reality won. This is a factual, sad gap between expectation and outcome. He should have called me as soon as he landed. I was worried sick. The expectation here is about care and communication. Should have signals that the expected behavior was the caring thing to do, and it didn't happen. The speaker was worried sick, which tells us the unmet expectation had an emotional cost, real anxiety, real waiting. I was planning to go to the gym every morning this month. This one is interesting because it hasn't necessarily failed yet. Or maybe it has. I was planning to suggests either that the plan changed before it could happen, or that the speaker is reflecting on a plan that didn't fully work out. It's about intention, about a structured future that was envisioned and then reality happened around it. They were expected to announce the results by Friday. This is a passive, impersonal form of expectation. It's not one person's hope. It's a general, shared anticipation. And the implicit question underneath it is, did the announcement happen on Friday? If someone is saying this sentence, it probably means the results didn't come, or came late, or there's still uncertainty. I meant to get her a gift before the party, but I completely forgot. Oh, this is so relatable, isn't it? The intention was genuine, but the execution failed. I completely forgot is the reason, which softens the blow a little. It wasn't indifference, it was human forgetfulness. But the regret is real. And probably so is a little bit of embarrassment. Fantastic. You are doing so well with this. Let's keep the momentum going. One thing I really want to draw your attention to before we finish is the way these expressions chain together in natural speech. Native speakers don't just use one expression in isolation. They layer them. They move from one to another. And when they do, they're painting a fuller picture of a situation. Let me give you an example of what that sounds like. Imagine a friend telling you about why they missed an important event. She might say, "I was supposed to be there by 7, and I really meant to leave on time. I was going to take the train, but I kept thinking I had more time than I did. I should have checked the schedule more carefully. By the time I realized I was late, there was nothing I could do. I felt terrible. I was so looking forward to it, and everyone was expecting me. I really let people down." Listen to how many of our key phrases appeared in that short passage. Supposed to be there, meant to leave, was going to take, kept thinking, should have checked. Everyone was expecting me. Each phrase adds a new layer to the story. The original plan, the intention, the alternative plan, the repetition of a wrong assumption, the self-criticism, the other people's expectations, the emotional fallout. That is how real English works. It's layered, it's nuanced, and now you can follow it. Let me share one final practice conversation with you, and this one is specifically designed to contain a high density of these expressions. I want you to listen all the way through and just let it wash over you. Then we'll talk about it. Two people are talking. A father named Howard and his adult daughter named Lily. They're discussing a family trip that fell apart. Howard says quietly, "I'm sorry about the trip, Lily. I know how much you were looking forward to it." Lily shakes her head slowly. "It's okay, Dad. I mean, it's not okay. But I understand. These things happen." Howard says, "Your mom and I were supposed to take you and your brother to the coast for your birthday. We planned it for months. We were so excited. The hotel was booked. The restaurant was reserved. We were meant to be there right now." Lily looks at him softly. I know all the work you put into it." Howard continues, "When the car broke down 3 hours in, I felt like I had completely let you down. You were expecting this wonderful trip. You should have been sitting on that beach right now with a cold drink in your hand, watching the sunset. Instead, we're sitting here." Lily reaches over and squeezes his arm. "Dad, stop. You meant well. You always do. And yes, I was really looking forward to it. And yes, I was expecting a brilliant birthday. But this Sitting here with you talking? This is actually nice too. Howard smiles, a little watery. You were supposed to be celebrating properly. Lily smiles back. Maybe we still will. We'll rebook. And honestly, Dad, you should have known I'd be okay. I always am. They both laugh softly. Take a breath. That was beautiful. And it was full of every expression we've covered today, but in a setting that felt completely real and emotionally true. Howard's, we were supposed to take you. We were meant to be there right now. All the careful plans being named. Then the disruption. Then his self-blame. You should have been sitting on that beach right now. He can picture the version of events that was supposed to happen, and it's painful for him to see the gap between that image and this moment. And then Lily's gentle reassurance. You meant well, acknowledging his intentions even as she acknowledges reality. And the playful end. You should have known I'd be okay. Using should have not as blame, but as a loving, humorous observation. That's what fluent listening looks like. That's what understanding expectations in English sounds like, feels like, lands like in real conversations. Before I let you go today, let me give you your challenge for the week. I want you to actively listen for these phrases in everything you consume in English. Movies, TV shows, podcasts, conversations. Every time you hear supposed to, meant to, was going to, should have, expected to, or counting on, I want you to pause mentally and identify. What was the expectation? Was it met? What emotion is being expressed? Even just a few seconds of that active attention will train your listening brain incredibly fast. And if you're feeling ambitious, which I think you are because you're still here, and that tells me a lot about how serious you are, try writing 2 or 3 sentences about your own life using these expressions. Something like, I was supposed to start learning guitar last year. Or, I meant to call my grandmother more often this winter. Or, I was counting on this new job to change things for me. Your own real experiences, your own real expectations expressed in this new way. That personal connection will make the language stick 100 times faster. This has been such a wonderful lesson to build for you, and I hope you've felt not just the grammar, but the emotion in it. English is a language of nuance, of feeling, of layered meaning, and you are learning to access all of it. Every conversation we've worked through today was full of real human experiences, missed meetings, broken promises, failed plans, deferred dreams, unmet expectations, and, always, the warmth and resilience of people finding their way through all of it together. That's what language is for. That's why we learn it. Thank you so much for being here with me on English in Fluency. I'm Alex, and this lesson was made entirely for you. If it helped you, please share it with someone who's also working on their English. Someone who you know would benefit from understanding the rich, human world of expectations in spoken English. And leave a comment below telling me which expression we covered today was the most useful for you. I read everything, and it genuinely means the world to me to hear from you. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep showing up. You are making more progress than you know. Now, because I know how much value you get from variety in your listening practice, I've prepared a whole additional section for you. We're going to go deeper into the way these expressions shift, depending on tone, relationship, and situation. I want you to be ready for every context, not just the friendly coffee chat, but the difficult conversation, the professional email being read aloud, the phone call with a stranger, the text message that carries more meaning than its few words suggest. Let's keep going. One thing that learners sometimes miss is how the same phrase can sound completely different depending on what comes before and after it. Let's take supposed to as our first example of this. We've heard it in disappointed tones and frustrated tones, but it can also appear in a completely neutral, informational tone. Think about the difference between these two sentences. The first, the train was supposed to leave at 9, but it was delayed. That's neutral. It's a factual statement. There's mild inconvenience implied, but no strong emotion. The second, she was supposed to be here. She promised. That one has real weight. The repetition of the expectation followed by the word promised tells you this matters deeply. This wasn't just a plan. It was a commitment. And it was broken. The phrase supposed to is exactly the same in both sentences, but the emotional register is completely different. This is why listening to context, the full sentence, the tone of voice, the words around the phrase, is so essential. Grammar gives you the skeleton, but context gives you the flesh and blood. Let's explore this further with a new conversation. This one takes place over the phone between two sisters. Their names are Brenda and Tasha, and they're talking about a situation involving their elderly father. Tasha answers the phone. "Hey, Brenda, is everything okay?" Brenda sounds worried. "Not really. Dad was supposed to have his doctor's appointment this morning, but he called me an hour ago saying he forgot." Tasha exhales. "Oh no. He was expecting to get his results today, wasn't he?" Brenda says, "Yes, exactly. The doctor was going to go over everything with him. We were counting on that appointment to figure out the next steps for his treatment." Tasha says quietly, "He should have written it in his calendar. We told him. We even set a reminder on his phone last week." Brenda sighs. "I know. But you know Dad. He keeps saying he'll remember things, and then he doesn't. I meant to call him yesterday to check, but I got so caught up with the kids." Tasha pauses. "Okay, so what do we do now?" Brenda says, "I called the clinic. They can fit him in Friday. But Tasha, one of us should go with him. He was supposed to go alone this time, and that clearly didn't work." Tasha agrees immediately. "You're right. I'll go. I was planning to visit him this weekend anyway. I'll just go earlier." Brenda sounds relieved. "Thank you. I feel terrible. I was expecting things to just go smoothly, and I should have checked in with him earlier in the week instead of assuming he had it handled." Tasha says gently, "Stop blaming yourself. We both thought he had it. We'll sort it out." This conversation is deeply real. Families dealing with aging parents face this kind of situation all the time, and the language of expectations runs all through it. Let's pick out the key moments. When Brenda says their father was supposed to have his doctor's appointment this morning, she's describing a medical plan, something with real stakes. It's not a casual plan like meeting for coffee. A missed doctor's appointment has consequences. The weight of supposed to here is directly proportional to the importance of what was planned. Tasha says the doctor was going to go over everything with him, and was going to here describes a planned action that didn't happen. They were relying on that conversation to move forward. Without it, they're in limbo. Was going to creates a very specific sense of an interrupted process. Things were moving forward. The next step was clearly identified. And then it didn't happen. The phrase, "we were counting on that appointment to figure out the next steps," is especially powerful because it makes the dependency explicit. The appointment wasn't just a routine event. Their whole plan, the plan for the father's care, pivoted around it. When someone says "counting on" in a medical or high-stakes context, you can feel how much is riding on that one thing. Then Tasha says he should have written it in his calendar and adds, "we even set a reminder on his phone." The "should have," combined with the additional context, creates a gentle but clear frustration. They took steps. They tried. They set a reminder. And still it slipped through. The emotion here is complicated. It's frustration, yes, but also worry for their father, and maybe a little helplessness about aging and memory and how much you can actually control. Brenda then admits, "I meant to call him yesterday to check." There it is again. Meant to. That sincere intention that didn't become action. And she even explains why. "I got so caught up with the kids." Her own life intervened. This is so human. We all know this feeling of having good intentions and having life crowd them out. Meant to acknowledges both the intention and the failure in a single honest phrase. Layla. "Okay, so I tried to make that soup I told you about." Ned grins. "How did it go?" Layla. "Ned, it was supposed to be a beautiful, fragrant Thai soup. It was meant to taste like the kind of thing you get in a restaurant." Ned. "But?" Layla. "But I may have added too much fish sauce. Like, a lot too much. And then I tried to fix it, and I added more coconut milk. And then it was too sweet, so I added chili. And then it was just confused." Ned laughs. "Oh no." Layla. "My husband took one sip and just looked at me, and I could see him trying to figure out what to say. He was expecting something wonderful. He'd been looking forward to it all day. I should have done a test batch first." Ned. "What did he say?" Layla. "He said, 'It's interesting,' which we all know means it's terrible." They both laugh. Layla continues, "I was planning to feel like a culinary genius tonight. Instead, I ordered pizza." Ned. "At least you tried. Most people don't even do that." Layla. "Yeah, well, I meant to follow the recipe more carefully, but I thought I knew better. Famous last words. Isn't that lovely? The same expressions, but now they're carrying laughter instead of pain. It was supposed to be a beautiful, fragrant Thai soup. The gap between the dream and the reality is the joke. He was expecting something wonderful. The husband's dashed expectations become a gentle, warm source of humor. "I was planning to feel like a culinary genius," the laughing-at-yourself admission of overconfidence. And "I meant to follow the recipe." That last line is perfectly self-aware. The intention was there. The follow-through was overridden by ego. And that's funny, and human, and completely relatable. What I want you to take from this is that these expressions aren't reserved for serious situations. They live in all the registers of English. Serious, light, funny, tender, frustrated, professional, personal. That's how you know they're truly core to the language. They show up everywhere because unmet expectations and unfulfilled intentions are simply part of being alive. We plan. Things change. We reflect. We move on. And English gives us such precise, beautiful tools for expressing all of that. Let me give you a quick but powerful grammar note before your final practice. I want to make sure you understand the time structure behind these phrases, because it's what makes them so specific. When you say was supposed to, was going to, meant to, or was expected to, you're using the past tense of the auxiliary verb, was, followed by the base form or infinitive. This combination creates what we can think of as the language of a future that lived inside the past. At some point in the past, there was a future, a planned, expected, intended future, and now, from our current vantage point, we're looking back at that former future and noting that it didn't arrive. That's the essence of what all these phrases do. They locate an expectation in a moment that is now behind us, and they mark the gap between what was expected and what happened. That temporal awareness, that sense of looking back at a planned future, is what gives these phrases their distinctive emotional color. In contrast, when you say should have, you're not talking about a plan that existed and didn't happen. You're making a judgment in the present about what the right action would have been in the past. Should have is evaluative. It's saying, from where I stand now, I can see that a different action would have been better. That's subtly but importantly different from was supposed to. One describes an existing expectation. The other describes a judgment made in retrospect. And expected to sits somewhere in between. It can describe what was planned, what was anticipated, or what was considered likely to happen. It's a little more flexible, which is why you'll hear it in all kinds of contexts, from personal to professional to journalistic. Understanding this structure won't just help your grammar. It will help your listening. Because when you hear these phrases, your brain will automatically orient in time, backward to the expectation, forward to the outcome, and sideways to the emotion in between. Here is your final set of practice sentences. This time, for each one, I want you to think about 3 things. What was expected? Did it happen? And how does the speaker feel? Really take a moment with each one. My best friend was supposed to be my maid of honor, but she and I stopped speaking 6 months before the wedding. A very specific expectation. A role in a deeply personal event. Did it happen? No. The friendship ended before the wedding even took place. The emotion? Grief. Loss. The kind of pain that lives in both the ending of a friendship and the absence of that person from one of life's biggest moments. The builders were meant to finish the renovations before the baby arrived. There was a plan tied to a life event, the arrival of a new child. Did it finish in time? Almost certainly not, given the way this is phrased. The emotion? Stress, probably. Anxiety. Maybe some frustration with the builders, and some worry about having an unfinished home with a newborn. I was going to apologize, but every time I picked up the phone, I just couldn't do it. The intention was there. The apology was forming, but action kept failing to follow. Why? Not laziness. Something harder. Courage. Or the right words. Or the fear of how the conversation might go. This sentence sits in the quiet tension between wanting to do the right thing and being unable to execute it. We were expecting the results to come back negative, medical, hopeful. This is a sentence that hangs between anticipation and what we don't yet know, or what we've just found out. Whether the expectation was met or not changes everything about this sentence. If the results did come back negative, it was a relief. If they didn't, this sentence is the beginning of a very hard story. He should have been here to see this. This is the most emotionally layered of all, because he is absent. Whether that absence is because of distance, estrangement, or death, the phrase "should have been here" is one of the most human expressions of loss in the English language. It holds the love, the grief, the continued relationship with someone who isn't present. It says, "This moment is significant, and you belong in it, and you're not here." I hope those practice sentences landed for you. Really landed. Not just as grammar examples, but as glimpses of real human experience. Because that's what language is at its deepest level. It's the way we hold and share our experience of being alive. You have covered an enormous amount of ground today. You've listened to conversations in 6 different settings: friends, colleagues, a mother and son, neighbors, business partners, and old friends reuniting. You've heard these key expressions in happy moments and difficult ones, in humor and in grief, in professional settings and in kitchen disasters. You've explored the grammar structure that makes these phrases work, and more importantly, you've begun to feel the emotional work they do in real conversations. That is what English in Fluency is all about. Not just the rules. The real, living, breathing language. The language that carries people's hopes and disappointments, their plans and their regrets, their love and their frustration, their humor and their resilience. That is the English you're learning. And that is the English I am here to teach you. I'm Alex. This has been English in Fluency. If this lesson gave you something, a new phrase, a new understanding, a new feeling for the language, please hit that like button, because it truly helps this channel reach more learners who need exactly this kind of lesson. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we are building something here together, one lesson at a time. And leave a comment below. Tell me which conversation today felt the most real to you. Tell me which phrase you've already started using. Tell me what you want to work on next. I want to hear from you. The next lesson is already being built with you in mind. Until then, listen well, speak bravely, and remember, every English speaker you admire started exactly where you are right now. Keep going. I believe in you. See you next time. And one last thing before I truly sign off. I know some of you are watching this lesson not just once, but multiple times. And I want to say something about that. That habit, that willingness to return to a lesson and hear it again with fresh ears, is one of the most powerful things a language learner can do. Because the first time you listen, you're absorbing the content. The second time, you're catching things you missed. The third time, you start to feel the rhythm of the language, the natural flow of how sentences connect, how emotions move through speech, how a speaker's voice carries meaning beyond just words. So if you've been one of those people returning to lessons here on English in Fluency, keep doing it. You are not being slow. You are being thorough. And thoroughness is what separates the people who learn to truly understand English from the people who always feel like they're almost getting it. Think about what happened in today's lesson from the perspective of Priya, who waited 40 minutes in a cafe. She sat there, expecting. Each minute was a small renewal of that expectation. And when Marcus finally called or texted or walked in, the conversation that followed was full of the language we studied today. Suppose you were sitting at that table next to Priya. Before this lesson, you might have understood what was said, but missed the emotional undertow, the disappointment, the mixed feelings, the gentle accusation in "you should have texted," the genuine regret in I meant to. After this lesson, you hear all of it. You feel all of it. And that changes everything about how connected you feel to the conversation. Or think about Felix and Amara and their group project. Before, you might have understood that there was a problem with the report. After this lesson, you understand the full emotional map. Amara's guilt, Felix's frustration, the group's dependency on one person, the tension between expecting communication and not receiving it, the relief of a solution being reached. That is the difference between surface-level comprehension and genuine fluency of understanding. This is the work we do here, lesson by lesson, conversation by conversation, expression by expression. We build your ability to hear English the way it was meant to be heard, fully, emotionally, humanly. And I am so grateful you are on this journey with me. Your homework, if you're ready for it, is this. Tonight or tomorrow, find one English language conversation in a show, a podcast, a YouTube video, a real conversation you're part of, and listen specifically for the expressions we covered today. You don't need to catch all of them. If you catch one, just one, and you understand not just its meaning, but its emotional weight, you've done the work. Write it down. Note what was expected. Note whether it was met. Note how the speaker felt. That small act of intentional listening is worth more than an hour of passive exposure. And remember, you can always come back to this video. It will be here. The conversations will be here. Alex will be here. English in Fluency will be here. Because this channel exists for one reason and one reason only: to help you hear and speak and understand English the way real people do, in real moments, with real feeling. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for giving your time and attention to this lesson. You are someone who takes your learning seriously, and that is something I genuinely admire. Now go listen, go practice, and come back soon.